screen. Give me 1 second. Okay, are you guys able to see my slides?
I'll see it.
Yep.
Well, welcome everyone to the August 2026 BC NAB user group meeting. We appreciate you guys all joining today. And just so you guys know, we will be recording this meeting as I have started the recording. We'll send the recording and a copy of the slide deck out within a few days after this meeting has ended. So hopefully you can stay for the whole entire time, but if not, you can still go back and review the content at any time. The recording is also going to be on Dynamic Community's YouTube channel. So without further ado, I will continue through my slides. We'll have some quick introductions. We will go through a quick update on Community Summit, which is right around the corner. Very excited for that. We'll talk about some of our upcoming events, and we'll open the floor for a brief question and update. That way, in case somebody does have to drop off a little early, then they can talk. And just a reminder about the question and updates. And I know we have, we have a couple presentations for you guys from Brad and Tanya. However, this is a user group meeting. So just as you would in the user group in person, you are able to take yourself off of mute if you do have any comments. But just remember, this is being recorded. So make sure that they stay professional. And then we're going to get into our educational sessions. Brad and Tanya, as you guys can see on the screen, have some really excellent sessions for us today. And then we'll end the call out with another roundtable and Q&A. All right, so just some what we call introductions. These are the 2026 board members. If you want to take a snapshot of the screen, any one of these individuals are able to assist with any questions or point you guys in the right direction at any time. They spend a lot of time outside their normal work, making sure that the user group is ran successfully and that we're able to help all of the users out as needed. And now we will promptly go into the summit recap. I think, Michael, do you have this one?
Yes, I do. Thank you so much, Angela.
You're welcome.
So good morning and good afternoon for some of you folks there. So my name is, for those that don't know me, my name is Michael Konstas. I am the president and CFO for Dynamic Communities. I've been working for about, this will be my 6th year here as I joined post-COVID, and this will be my 6th summit. So wanted to make sure you guys have a full visibility on Community Summit. We expect, so this year is in Nashville, literally 53 days out. So it's coming pretty fast. And I know we're in the middle of the summer, but it's really, this year is a little bit earlier in October. It is in Nashville. Great weather is expected. Hopefully not a lot of storms, like afternoon storms, but, we have, it's at the Gaylord Opryland. I don't know, those that they have been back in the summit, they keep raving about how 9 years ago, the Nashville summit, the summit back at Nashville was their favorite conference, of the last 20 plus years that summit is happening. But we do expect, to have actually a great conference and a show too. So far, registrations are doing great. We have, and as of this morning, just a little bit over 3,500 individuals that they have registered. and there's the attendees, speakers, sponsors, and all that. From a Business Central perspective, we have a great representation. So for those that don't know, Business Central has grew over the years and practically overtook the finance and supply chain user group, and it is the largest pretty much ERP that is attended the conference. So far, from those registered, we have about 1,100 of them have Business Central installed on the systems. The primary reason they're coming to Summit is 920 of them, and out of the 920 of them, the 700 are users. So we expect, similar to last year, to have a kind of like a breakout with those that are like kind of more dedicated on Business Central. Just about 65 to 70% of them to be users. So if you guys are a partner, there's a great opportunity to meet with your clients. If you're a user, there's a great opportunity, to meet, MVPs, Microsoft partners, and equally as important, I'm going to say other users too, so you can actually share their experiences, share your experience, and be able to also find actually solutions for your problems. So we do have a very large expo hall. It's a little tighter this year just because Opryland we have more sponsors than last year. So they will be about 200 as of yesterday. We have 275 firms that are represented there, and they're partners and ISVs, but there are also other firms around it. Like for example, today, I don't know if you guys are familiar, Lovable is the new name on the AI, is a tool that's kind of boiled down a lot of people from tech, those in the tech departments, like they're using Lovable. Lovable is going to have a sizable presence there. They just signed it today. So it's not just only those partners and ISVs, but there's a whole bunch of slew of other tech firms that can help you in any kind of solution that you want to have there. The full agenda is live. We have about 700 sessions across the ERPs. What we do not have yet there is the Microsoft sessions that are expected to be populating next week. I'm not so sure if you guys are familiar. We have, there is actually a new Business Central general manager. Those that you guys actually knew, Mike Morton, he has moved on in Microsoft and he's now supporting the sale. Mike will be there to do actually, as part of his new engagement. But, there's a new GM, her name, can't remember her last name. Is either she's not going to be able to come, but she's putting there's a full representation from Microsoft. So there's at least 4 or 5 Microsoft BC specialists there from the product group as well as the solution architect. Overall, we expect somewhere about 80 Microsoft speakers. We are a community conference. We're not like Convergence. So when you come at Summit, you would expect that 85+% of the sessions are actually from our community members. They're not the Microsoft. That's a big change versus like Convergence that happens, which is kind of fairly similar, but it's a Microsoft conference, and there 85% of the sessions are actually from Microsoft, that not from the community. So the BC section, the product session, is now slotted for Tuesday afternoon. That's where you actually get to see some of the Microsoft folks presented, but they will also have like about 15 sessions that you can attend them between Monday and Thursday. Our keynote is on Monday morning. We have now there's a slew of individuals and high level Microsoft folks. I don't know if you're familiar. George Glanstrich is the one that is the general manager now for all ERPs at Microsoft. So we expect him to have him there. Donna Sharkar, some of you might know her. She's a great presenter. She's on the AI Copilot group, and she's working closely with the Copilot training. So there will be definitely it will definitely be some exciting opportunities to show what exactly Microsoft is moving on, in this new, agentic world. I do want to mention also that, there is, if you are an RSM customer, RSM does have a dedicated day. It's a conference built on a conference. So practically you can register directly, and on Wednesday you can attend the RSM, dedicated sessions where they pretty much, they're actually doing their, they expect to have just about 200 clients there. and it's a big representation. They give awards for the year and all that. So anything that has to do with the Microsoft ecosystem from RSM, it's going to happen on Wednesday. Wednesday night also is our Grand Ole Opry celebration. The reason I'm mentioning that because it's a good sized party. We do have Diamond Rio as a presenter there. We're closing the show floor a little bit earlier this year to make sure that we give people enough time. The concert starts at 7. For those that they're an Emmy Award winning group. I'm not a country fan, but for those that they are, although I promise I will come with boots at Nashville. But for those that they love it, I think they're gonna have a great opportunity for them to have some fun. And then after we finish up, the concert finishes up. There's some different roped off areas, and there's another 1 or 2 bands that they will be playing there till just about 10:30. So it's a full-blown celebration. The one thing I want to mention is that for those that are thinking of coming to Summit, make sure you prepare, you get ready. There's going to be 4 busy days. If you have we have academy classes the day before. If you're attending that is great. But if you come in just for the conferences, this is an amazing opportunity to get to meet other individuals, to get answers. We have tech medics and those that you saw actually on the board earlier, as well as Microsoft, as well as other power users, as well as about 100 plus MVPs that we have. Not only they will help you, make better use of your day, but literally you can literally walk in with a laptop and say, I have this problem, can you help me? And there's a very high chance that you'll be able to resolve it on the spot. And if it's not on the spot, at least you will have a great direction or some context that you actually can follow up. So Summit is, as part of dynamic communities, is a way that everybody's coming together. But you can continue, obviously, as you hear more, to have the engagement all year round, and the relationships you're gonna do at Summit can continue on for many, many years, as those that have been coming there will tell you. So. That's what I have, Angela. If there's any questions, very happy to look at the chat or take them. So
yeah, and don't forget to if you have not signed up yet, sign up by the end of August to save a couple $100.
Very good.
All right, just a couple more events that are coming up, and you can kind of see towards the end of the year, we're going to get a little bit lighter on these. We do not have any events or roadshows in October. That is because of the full content that you will be receiving at Summit. But we have Denver coming up in November. As far as a roadshow, we have a Fort Lauderdale roadshow in December. And then our September and November scheduled user group meetings. We'll also have a user group meeting in December as well. But again, no meetings in October just due to Community Summit. And then I'm going to let Blaine, Pennypacker, talk about the upcoming webinars.
All right. Yep. So thank you, Angela. We just as she mentioned about roadshows and such, we do not have a planned webinar separate, at least one as I schedule them through the board of advisors here in October because of Summit. But we do have webinars scheduled right now for September, November, December, and believe it or not, into 2027 now. Hard to believe, but anyway, so some really good topics. We highly encourage you. Here coming up in the next couple of weeks is on September 1st. Take a look at that one. Real world planning worksheet scenarios. Really good content in these. You can see the rest of them listed here as well. Highly recommend you go on to Learners, sign up for these and attend. We've had pretty good attendance. In between 50 and 100 attendees. And so that's a good user group representation, and really encourage everybody here to go ahead and sign up for one of these coming up, or maybe all of these coming up. That's all I have for now. Thanks, Angela.
Yeah, you're welcome. And make sure you scan Blaine's QR code right there and volunteer to be a speaker for an upcoming webinar. We will be quickly pounding the pavement to gather some more 2027 content. So If you have some topics that you would like to speak about, please reach out to Blaine and we can get you guys considered.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Right before we go into Brad's presentation here, just want to open the floor. Does any users on the call have any questions or comments that they want to address? Not everybody speak at one time. Well, awesome. Well, again, we'll open the floor at the end of the show here, the meeting here. And so if you think of anything, just make sure you stick around. So, and for now, I'm going to take it over on over to Brad.
Great, thank you. I'm going to share my screen in a moment. Hopefully it all will go through. It's always a challenge sometimes with sharing the screen. Okay, can everyone see my screen at this point? Can everyone hear me? Yes, no, maybe so?
Yes, we can see your screen.
All right, great, thank you. Thank you, everyone. My name is Brad Prendergast, and what we're going to do for this afternoon is maybe for the next 40 minutes now, talk about page scripting within Business Central and how you can use it within your implementation. A little bit about myself. My name is Brad Prendergast. I've been working with the product since about 1998. Believe it, back long ago when it was Navision, when it first came to the country. I am a member of the NAVUG BC Board of Advisors, NAVUG BC All-Star, also a Microsoft MVP. I do have a QR code on the screen. I enjoy speaking with many members or every member of the Business Central community, talk about the product, talk about how it's used, talk about how you can do things with it and some of the capabilities it have. I do primarily focus on development, system architecture, design, but I also do work with implementations of it. My latest fun project is businesscentraltrivia.com. Invite everyone to go over there and have a little fun and test out your Business Central knowledge. What is in-client page scripting? And as Angela and everyone had mentioned, as we go through this discussion, if you have any questions, please let me know. I can't see the chat at this point, so feel free to speak up. Or if somebody can let me know if there's a question, we can address it. So what it is, it's been around for a few years, is it allows you to record and replay tests directly within Business Central. As we go through the presentation, I'll talk about the tests a little bit more and how you may be able to use page scripting to do many other things. I'll talk about how I use it. I use page scripting heavily on a near daily basis. It allows you to validate the outcomes of processing. It allows you to also have expressions and steps. So it's more than just recording and replaying what you're doing in Business Central. You can actually have some validation. You can put some expressions. So you have a little bit of logic in there behind it. You can also have some conditional steps. The processing that you're going to follow within Business Central doesn't always have the same sequence. Sometimes there's certain conditions under which you may want to validate outcomes, or you have other steps that you would like to have performed. You can also work with your internal clipboard to copy and paste information from your clipboard into the tests. You can also handle optional pages. Sometimes we have those pages, such as when you processing a transaction, you may get an inventory warning location. You may have some other optional pages that will display on your screen at certain times. You can also add parameters to it. One thing about with page scripting, and it's originally designed or intended to be for user acceptance testing. What it is, it's designed for user acceptance testing. It's for end users and consultants, and it runs in the web client. And it's intended to be a simple tool to interact and run through some scenarios for Business Central. What it isn't is it's not a replacement for automated testing. It's not a replacement for performance testing, and it's not a replacement for integration tests. Right? There's other tools for that. So it's important as you're going through and doing any acceptance testing or testing to understand that this user acceptance testing piece is more for the UI or the use within Business Central. There are automated tests that you can do from a development point of view. There's a performance test toolkit and other test toolkits that allow you to have other types of tests within your application. And with everything, is you have different tests, you have different tools. The test toolkit will allow you to do some automated tests, typically driven by developers or consultants or power users. There's performance tests, which are typically driven by your developers and your architects and performance specialists. And then you have the page scripting. The page scripting is intended to be for user acceptance testing, for consultants and power users, and it's pretty much designed for everybody to be able to use. As I had mentioned, I use it near daily, excuse me, in a lot of the tasks that I have, and I'll talk about that a little bit further. Also with this automated testing is a way that you can programmatically test your AL code for Business Central. You can test the procedures to validate certain values and amounts that it's going to process properly, going to have the proper results and proper processing within it. And the user acceptance testing more allows you to record a page, and then you can see that maybe a total amount matches an invoice page, or total amount matches on an invoice page. And again, this does not replace automated testing. I've had many conversations, and one of the questions that I've often heard is, can they replace the automated testing, or the need for developers to create some automated tests for their implementation? And it does not replace that. There are cases where you will need to use that, or many cases. The same thing goes with performance toolkits. It's not intended for you to set up a lot of sessions and go through and run many different scripts to test the performance of the code, or test performance of your processing. There is a performance test toolkit that allows you to go through that scenario and create that pressure on your environment to see how it handles from a performance point of view. Again, it's not a performance tool as well. I'm going rather quickly here, so now we'll step into a quick demonstration of it. Does anyone have any questions at this point on the page scripting? Does anybody use it? As Angela had mentioned, it's a user group meeting, and having some interactive conversations is a great way to learn from others, as others may also be able to learn from you. And what I enjoy most about these is I enjoy meeting people and having conversations with people. So if anyone would like to share, please.
I was going to say, Brad, I've used it. If you haven't used it, make sure you're paying attention. It is a great tool.
I have one for you, Brad. Do you show this to your customers, or ever have your customers send you, like when you're trying to do support?
Yes. Okay. I will talk about that as part of this presentation, because that is one of the additional uses. As I go through I'll go through a few scenarios, and then I will talk about that.
Awesome.
It is a great tool for support. So does anyone else have any comments, questions at this point? Okay, great. I'll make up some questions as we go then. Can everyone see my Business Central screen? I just switched tabs. It's so hopefully everyone can still see it.
Yes.
So in the page scripting, if you click on the cog in the upper right-hand menu, if you have permissions, there are permissions that are necessary and required for the page scripting for you to be able to create the test and also be able to run the test. So if you do not have permissions for this, you will not see it. But if you do have permission, you go into the page scripting preview, and the page scripting preview will open up a window that will, when you first open it up and run to it, it'll give you this dialogue. And now this is where you create and interact and work with your page scripts.
Hey, Brad.
Brad.
Yes, hey, we see the actual slide. There's a slide on the screen, not your.
Okay, thank you. Let me go back to. It's always, like I said, it's a challenge sometimes. How is that?
Better.
Okay, we'll start over. Thank you, Blaine.
Yep.
So if we have a Business Central screen, if you click on the cog in the upper right-hand corner, you can see it opens up your settings. Page scripting is one of the options on there. If you click on the page scripting menu option, it will open up the page scripting window where you will work with this application. From here, you have the opportunity to start a new recording, or you can open an existing or saved recording, which we will talk about in a few moments. What I will do is I will click on a new recording. And if I click on a new recording, if I go through and complete a process, I'll create a sales order, for example. We'll see that on the right-hand side in the pane, it's going to go through and record the steps that I am taking or performing within my Business Central session. So I'll create a new sales order. I'll put in a customer. I'll put in today's date. I'll pick an item. I do have my screen enlarged a little bit for this, so we may not see all of the screen at once. I type in my quantities, and on the right-hand side, it will go through and record basically what I'm doing. So now I can go through and I can post this sales order. I can ship and invoice this sales order. It will go through. I don't want to see it. I'll just go back to the main screen. Now I can stop this. And now what I have here is I have all of the steps that I had just performed in my Business Central environment, in essence, scripted out. So I can now replay this. So if I hit play, it will go through and perform all of the actions that I had just performed. And some may ask, well, how is this user acceptance testing? This really, again, if you could go through and successfully create an order, based upon information that you have set up, it could have set up a test for you. But we can put a little bit more into this to have some more logic to validate some testing. As we had started with this, there was the option to open or start a new recording. We can save this recording to a file. It is a YAML file. You can put some property information, so I can put a name on here for, sales order creation. And then if you spell it correctly, it's always wonderful when you do that. And then I could save it to a file, and then I could share that file with somebody. Also, if you want to share it, you could share it via a link, and you could send this link to somebody and they would have the same script that you have. So you could save it to a file and then share that file with somebody. And then you can also copy that link and move that link along. Tanya, you had asked a question. I'll jump ahead a little bit on it here. Now that I've talked about the saving, I was going to mention it a little bit later, but I think we can move it up. This is very helpful. Again, a lot of times we talk about user acceptance testing or user testing. This can be used in many more ways, and it has been used in many more ways, and I do use it in many ways. Oftentimes from a support point of view, whether you're a customer or a partner, you may have a customer, if you're a customer saying, oh, I have this problem, I have this error, and the person that's going to provide support, maybe your partner, they'll just say, well, tell me what you did. Tell me the steps that you went through. Well, what you could do is you could record the steps that you had taken, send that file to them. They can then process and run that file and see exactly what you're doing and be able to work with you to remedy any unfitness that you have, whether it's data issues or systemic setup issues or the like. Even then from a partner point of view, and I've worked with it as well, someone had sent me a script for me to take a look at what they were doing. I realized that they had a setup that needed to be slightly adjusted. I was able to record it, send it back to them, and have them play that script, and it made the necessary setup change for them so that they were able to proceed. So it made things a little bit easier because the communication was sped up because I was able to see exactly what they had done. And then also on their side, I was able to send them a file back without having to worry about logging in, connecting, or the like to go through it. So it is very helpful in that sense from a support point of view. Now, I had mentioned before that there are some other options that you can do. I noticed if I put in, it tells you the steps. I put in T for today. You could type in a specific date, but T is one of the filter keys for Business Central that will put in today's date. So I could run this script on any single day. The other thing you notice, I put in a quantity of 1 here. Each of these values or each of these input screens, you can use PowerFX functions. So here I just had the value typed 1, so I can put in rand between, and it now will put in a value between 1 and 10 for me. So now it puts a little bit of variability into my testing. So now you talk about user acceptance testing. A lot of times when individuals will test the process that is set up in Business Central, they may enter a sales order for the same item, for the same quantity every single time, which really isn't testing. Usually you want to test with different quantities. You want to test with different line amounts. So you can put some variability into that to validate that you have a good test in there. So if I were to run through this now, I'll start this over and run my test. I'll have to stop it quickly. I meant to pause it. You see my quantity entered 6. So that chose a random number between 1 and 10. In this case, it chose 6. So now let's come up with another scenario. So let's just say we have a customer, first customer right here. Our customer may have some special pricing. So we have prices here. So if this customer orders this item and they have a quantity of 2 or more, then the unit price is 900. So we want to go through and test our process to make sure that that's accurate. So what I'll do is I will start a new recording. I will do the similar steps that I had done before. I go to sales orders. I'll create a new sales order. What I can do here is, again, I'll put in the customer. I'll go through the same processing. I'll put in today's date. I'll put in and select the item number. Checking a location. I'll put in a quantity. And then now what you can do is if you right click, you have a context menu. And then now with this context menu, we have other things that we can do. We could copy a value for page scripting. We could paste a value, maybe a value that we had copied. We can validate, saying that the current value, if it's 1. And then we can also add conditional steps. So if the conditional steps, the value is 1. So what I want to do is we just set up a sales price for a customer that if they ordered more than 1, that the price would be $900. So I'll add a conditional step where I'll say if the current value right now, we'll have it as 1. Then what I want to do is I'll go over to the unit price and I'll right click, go to my page scripting context, validate that the current value is 1,080. Then I can continue going through and then posting my sales order. Now you'll say, well, that doesn't match what you have and what you had set up there. I'm just going to post it to kind of finish this up. If we go back now into our page script, we can edit this. Actually, one thing I wanted to do on here. I'm going to kick back and start this over again. I'll do a new script and I will do my sales order. It's oftentimes I do this, I jump over that. I won't give you the verbal as I go through it, but you can see as I type in the information right here. So I'll do my conditional step again, page scripting, conditional step, current value. If it's 1, I want to go through and I want to page script validate that it's a specific value. One thing that you notice up here is we have an end scope. So this scope that we're in, we went into having a conditional value. So it put us sort of in a loop. So if you look on the right-hand side, it created a drop down or an indentation where we have a loop for this. Once we only want to validate that when the quantity is 1, and we don't want to perform any other actions. So before you perform any other actions, when the quantity would be 1 in this case, you have to end the scope, and it will bring it back out, and then you can continue with your processing. So now if we go back, based on what we talked about, we knew that we had said that if the quantity is more than 1. So if we want to do some randomized testing, we can do the random between. We can put 1 through 10 or any numbers that you have on there. Excuse me. See, I'm jumping up everywhere. It's the input here, the properties. We'll do the rand between 1 through 10. And then for our, when the quantity is, I'll go back to the quantity, we go into our properties. So here we can set other operators up as well. So when our quantity is greater than or equal to 2, which is what we had set up on our pricing file, we want to validate that the price is, we set up $900. So now what we had done is we had started this testing that we wanted to test in a particular case, the price that's for this specific customer. So what I'll do is I can stop my recording and we can run it up to here, up to a certain point, or we can run through it. I won't do the posting, but I'll run it up to here. So you can right click also when you want to go through your scripting, you can run it up to a certain point and it will go through and it will run your script up to a certain point. So now we see that we have $900 and it validated the $900 here. If we had a separate value in here that we wanted to validate it for, we go back to $1,000 because we knew that the price would be $1,000. Don't you love it when this always happens? Okay, well, I'm going to start. I don't know. I was in the middle of a sales order, and it expects you to start new on a new sales order listing page. So it will run in the context of the screens that you have set up, and that's why I always generally will go back to my role center to start from, so that the navigation will go through. So now we can see that here I have an error on my script. When I have an error on my script, it shows me that it was expecting 1,000 when I had 900. So that is in a sense in where we can have a random number that's entered and then validate that in this case, that price discount worked for this as well. One thing that I had also mentioned is you could use the clipboard. We could take this a little bit further if you wanted to complete your test. What I'll do is I will start a new recording. In this case, what I will do is I will create a new customer. And I'll choose it from a specific template. And then now a new customer is created. If I right-click on here in my context menu, I can copy this value. So I can put in test customer and have specific information in there. I could fill in the information and go through it. Then I can navigate back. I'll go into a sales order, create a new sales order. And then when I put in the customer number, I can right-click my page scripting, and I can paste the value that I copied from somewhere else, my customer card. So I could paste that in here, and I will continue through the processing. And now what it had gone through is it had created a customer for me. Now, when you create the customer, you could create additional information, or you could go through and also test some validation on the creation of the customer. And in here, we'll also go through and post and process that sales order. So if you go back and stop this, and we will run it again, you'll see that it will go through and will create a new customer for me. And now we have a couple of these processes pasted together. Does anyone have any questions at this point? Okay, some additional things that you can do with the processing of this is you can do some loops. And I'll go through and do this. One of the ways that I use this page scripting is I use page scripting to set up environments for demonstrations, to set up environments for testing. Oftentimes, if I'm going through and processing and doing some testing and doing some reviewing, I need to create sales orders. I need to create additional type of documents. So I will go through and have scripts or suites of scripts, which I'll talk about momentarily, which will go through and basically set up an environment for me. So every single time that I want to go through and have a new environment created, I will run these scripts and it will create that information for me. So what I can do now is we'll go through some of the additional options that you have within the page scripting, is I will create another script, a new recording. What I'll do now on this recording is I'll go over into my inventory items. And what I'll do is I will filter for my items by an item category.
Hey, Brad, do you want to know a question in the chat?
Yes, I can't see the chat. So if there are any questions, just chirp them up. And if,
Sure.
I'll answer them if it's appropriate. If not, we can wait until the end.
All right. Yeah, this one comes from Rod. Says, does this automatically work on any page? Does a developer need to do something to make it work on a custom page?
No, you do not. It works with the UI in the browser. So if you have custom or created PTEs, or if you're using an ISV extension, it will work with those. Anything that you have available to you as the user, permission-wise, you have access to. So if you added fields or if you added new pages, it works with those pages. Does that answer your question? If you need additional information, please let me know. So now I filtered this category for my chairs. If I right click through my context, I have for each row. So now I may want to, now I have a filtered set of records. And again, the use of this goes far beyond testing, right? Now, if we had to do some tests, we could filter and go through and look at each one of these items, but I'm going to do something a little bit different. So now I have a for each row. So for each record returned in this list page, I'm going to do something. I'm within a scope. I'm going to click on this item, open this item card. And then now what I'll do is I want to make sure I have inventory for this demonstration so that I could go through and do some testing, or you could do something else and remove inventory for items. So you could go through, and again, if you use the conditional context that we talked about, you may or may not want to change inventory for certain items based upon a value on a page. But for this demonstration and for time, I'm going to go through all of them, and I will go through, and for every single one of these, I will expand my context again. So I'll go for each row in my locations. I will type in 1000 for inventory. Now it will make an adjustment. I'm going to end my scope, which means for that scope of the rows on this page, because now I have an indented scope. I have for each row in my item, and then now for each row in the page that popped up for my inventory adjustment is also an indented scope, but I just ended out of that scope. So now I'm going to close this page, and then it will make the adjustment for me. And then I'm going to close out of the card, and I'm going to end my scope. And then now what I'll do is I can clear my filter, and I will go back to my main screen. So now what it should do, if we set this up properly, is it will go through and it will add inventory to every single location that we have for the items that have an item category of chair. So again, this is how I had mentioned I go through and I use it to go through and set up demonstration data. I also go through to set up testing data, because now what I can do is I can add inventory, remove inventory. I can have certain locations have certain rules to go through and do some setup. It's a really powerful tool. You can, another question I get often, you can use this in production as well as in sandbox. I don't recommend using it in production. A lot of people may sometimes try to simplify some of the work that they have for production. It will warn you that you're in a production environment. If you do run these scripts, just be aware that you are in a production environment. So now that had gone through, as you had watched on the screen, if we go into any of these items that I had set up for the item category chair, I can pick any of these items, and now they all have 5,000 on hand for inventory, one for each of the locations we have. With this, if the inventory was less than 1,000, it makes a positive adjustment. If it was more than 1,000, make a negative adjustment. So we have now 5,000 to start off with for every single one of these. So you can, it's something that's nice to have set up there for this as well. Another thing with the page scripting, sort of just to talk about some of the uses for it before we start talking about parameters and then talking about suites, is you can do so much more with it. We talked about now that you could do support type issues. You can send it to someone to reproduce an action and then also maybe make some adjustments to data, such as we had done here. Some other uses that I have seen, there are YAML files, which is just yet another markup language, but a YAML file is a well-known file. I have seen some and done and worked with it myself. Individuals create documentation. Nobody likes to create documentation and implementation. User acceptance testings, a lot of times after you go through user acceptance testing and you have your processes down, you may want to document these processes. Well, with those YAML files that you go through with these scenarios, a lot of times you could use AI You could use Copilot, Claude, or some of those. They're getting more and more familiar with the application, or with some context. You can work with it a little bit more and create user manuals on how to go through and set up a process. You can also use some of those tools to take screenshots. I had set some of these up to go through processes to create manuals, and it would take screenshots along the way to do that for you. So that's one case where you have it. So as you go through and set up these processes, oftentimes it's becomes sort of tribal knowledge, as they say, because you may have a person who is aware during the initiation or the onset of the process to be able to set up, and they only knew how to do it. And now you could take that out of the equation out of there, and now you can have documentation. So if you do have somebody who's new to the process, either for support or either working with the process, they can go through and they can follow those guides or follow along those guides as training material and support material to assist you with your processing. So that's another case where I've seen it being used as well. So another case with these is you do have the option to have parameters. And what a parameter is we've been typing in some information that's pretty much static outside of some of the PowerFX functions that we've utilized, that we've worked with conditional and validation to make sure we have validation values. We've looped through rows. We've copied values from other records that we've created and used them in there. The other thing that you have is you can actually have parameters. A parameter allows you to manually input a value when you run your page script. So what we can do for this, there's a couple of ways that you can set up parameters. So what I'll do is I will start a new script. And in this script, you can, if you go into the properties, you can do in parameters, and you can do add a parameter. So I may have a parameter that I want to say customer no. My fingers always get in the way. Anyone who does presentations always appreciates the typos on the screen. You know, you can type perfectly all day long, and then when you have to do a presentation is when you start making a few errors that you have. So now if we go into my sales order screen right here, so I put in my customer on my sales order. In this case, I would do a show more, and then we go into our customer field. And then what you have here is you can type in a customer. Well, actually, I might have to start this one over. Yeah, I'm going to start this one over again, because I wanted my screen to have the customer number available. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll start a new recording again. Everybody's familiar with starting a new recording now. So we'll do a new sales order. We have a customer number that we can type in. We'll put in an item number, put in a location code, a quantity, and continue going through our posting process. I had typed in the customer number at that point. So now if we go back to our recording where we input into the customer number, we input 1,000 or the value in there. If we go into the properties, the other way I had shown was you can add the property from the beginning. You can say to use a property, or here we can say use as a parameter. So we use as a parameter, we now will have a parameter in our parameters for a customer number. And then we can put in the default value. So if we didn't want someone to type it, or what that would do is when we go to run our test, it will prompt the user to enter the number that you want entered. So now when you're going through your testing, instead of always using the same customer number, you can type in a specific customer number and go through the process. And if your script is formed, it will go through. Mine might override it with the 2,000 or the 1,000 right there, which I may not want. So another thing that you can do with your scripts, and you have to be very careful for this, is you can record them and you can edit these steps. I may not want this step in here any longer. Adding additional steps and removing additional steps may produce undesired results in your scripts, but once you start working with them, you can do so. So if I want to delete those steps in here, because now I had it, I want to use my value, I typed 1, then I selected the 10,000 as an additional step. I want to go back and edit it so that it works properly. If I made a mistake and I stopped recording, you can also do is you can see add a step or record from here. Also, if you'd like to see a pause, they've added a wait to here. So in the event that the script will go through and run the processing as quickly as it can. It doesn't mimic what the user typed or the delays. But there may be an instance where we had the quantities in one of the previous examples where we may want to wait a little bit for it. So you can add a wait so that it will pause on the screen. So whomever is watching the script, again, these are intended for someone to run these scripts so that you can see the script. So now I made the changes to my script. I'm going to stop my recording. And then what I'll do is, if I ran everything properly, now I can go through and use 2000. If you see this, it will go through, create a new sales order. It will put in the value for me, and it didn't because I didn't take out the steps right here. So you have to continue taking out the steps, and it will go through. And we'll get this going. And this is what I mean by is you have to take a look at what you have set up in there. We'll go through and run our step. We'll put in a 2,000 or a 1,000 or whatever number you'd like to have. We'll make it to 3,000 for this. And we have to start it on the sales screen. See, these are the things you work with the test. So we'll go back to where we started in the beginning because now we have an error because it can't get to the new sales order page because I was already on an open sales order. So stop this, go back to the beginning, run this again. We'll have 3,000, which typed in. There you go. Our 3,000 is going to be the one that we had selected. And again, as you can see, you can go through and work with this and you can continue running your step from here and going through it. One other thing with this is you can automate these. I said they're intended for someone to use them. There is BC Replay, which runs on NPM, which you can actually set up a suite of tests. And those suite of tests will allow you to run many steps in a row. And it will actually take a little video of it doing the processing. So you can, in essence, automate some of these tests that you have set up. Another thing that you can have is you can create suites of tests. So that's BC Replay allows you to run a folder full of tests. You save those individual test files and you can automate those. The other thing that you can have is you can have suites. A suite allows you to have multiple tests that run. What I had done in a previous example is I created a customer, then created a sales order all within one step. Typically, when I go through and I run my page scripts for testing or for even setup or other processes, I create them as individual processes that I want to have run. And then what I'll do is I'll create a suite, and I'll show you what the suite file looks like. Again, it's another YAML file. So now I have multiple page script testing files that I'm going to run through. And one of the first things that I always do, I put this on here because it shows that you can do more than just work with the records on the screen. I can change some of the configurations on my personal setup. The teaching tips, when I start up with a new demo environment, I don't like having them pop up all the time. So I always have a script that will go through and run it. Here, the same thing that we just talked about with the inventory for chairs, and then I run a sales order. So now if I run this script, it went up and it popped up and it changed my teaching tips to be off. Now it will go through, depending upon what I have on the script within here. And again, this is the wonders of Business Central Cloud. It will go through and run through all of my individual scripts that I have set up here for this. What I will do, and again, for the time, I know Tanya has to go through hers as well. I'll just stop this script right here.
No, Brad, you can keep going. This is delightful.
Well, I'm excited to see your presentation.
Oh.
So that suite file that I had opened up, can everyone see this suite file on the screen? It's another YAML file that has the steps that we're going to include. You put in a name, you put in a path to the file that you're going to run, you put in a description, that's the description that displayed on the screen. And then I went up and I put the individual file on there. Also, one thing, when you run a suite, you can specify which profile that it starts in. So you may have different profiles or role centers, and this is how you determine what it will start in, so that you can keep having your tests work within that particular environment, because that may be something that you need set up as well. So I think that covers pretty much. Page scripting within Business Central. I'll go back to Business Central. Does anyone have any questions on this? Does anybody want to share any stories of how they're using it? As I mentioned, with BC Replay, you can automate it. The suites are a great way to run multiple scripts together, and you can create different suites to create different functions. They're great for support, great for documentation, and also great for validating processes. And again, as I had demonstrated with the price for the customer, you can validate several different types of amounts, if you've seen there, and have some conditional evaluations in there as well. If there are no questions, that's all I have for this. I appreciate everyone taking time to attend the session.
Great. Thank you so much, Brad. And Tanya, you should be able to, unless, does anybody have any questions? You can take yourself off your mute for Brad real quick before we move forward. I know we had some in the chat, but I don't want to make sure it's addressed if you have one. All right, great. Now, Tanya, you should be able to share your screen, and let me know if you have any issues with it.
All right. Hopefully I can share this. I'm going to try to share this as a slideshow. You know how this always is so much fun in Teams or in all of the things here. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and try to share my screen, and then I will bring up my presentation. I think I'll probably have the same issue that Brad had, where I might not be able to see the chat. Okay, so you should be seeing my Business Central right now, it looks like. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and bring this up, and I'll go from the beginning of this presentation also. Okay, so everybody should be able to see this first slide here. I put these other slides in there just so wasn't sure if we were really going to need to go over those, but then we'll get to this. Okay.
Yeah, we see your Business Central right now.
Okay, well, that's fun. I don't know how. Okay, so that's interesting. Let me hit escape. Okay, let me stop sharing. Okay, so I'm sharing the entire window is what I was trying to do. Window, entire screen. Wonder if that will be better. All right, let me try to share that. And now, I guess, what are you seeing?
Yep, we see the presenter view for the
All right.
PowerPoint, but that's okay. I mean,
that's okay. I'll switch it, and I think I can just share my other screen, which I think is going to share. It's really strange because when I say from beginning, I can't see the share after that when I turn it into presentation mode. Okay, this is kind of crazy.
Try it again, Tanya. I think it flipped over to presentation mode there momentarily.
Okay, so let me try entire screen again, and I'll say share. And then, oh, that did not work there.
Ooh.
Okay, this is fun. Let me try again. Okay, I'll say entire screen, and I'll try this one. Okay, so now this is just, okay, you'll have to tell me what you're seeing because I see something totally different.
Yeah, it flipped over to the presentation now, so that looks good.
Okay, perfect. All right, and I will go back through and I will be doing some demo stuff with you guys also. So I think it should be okay that you should be able to see this screen. All right,
Yeah.
so everybody can see my screen okay?
Yes.
Yes? All right, awesome. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is Power BI and Business Central together. I have a couple of presentations that I have done with Power BI and Business Central over the years, going from the apps and customizing apps and just doing Power BI in general, and then of course Power BI tips. This one I've kind of put a bunch of it together. So hopefully you guys will learn some things out of this session. And my name is Tanya Henderson, and I have been a consultant since 2000, so just a few years. I've GP, BC, and Power Platform, and I speak at all over the world at different conferences. Recently just spoke in Vietnam and a couple other places that were kind of some really nice locations in Slovenia. And I'm also a Microsoft MVP, and I do work on the Financial Reporting Hero team to help out with all of the new financial reporting features that have been launched in Business Central. I do have my contact information on this slide, and I will also have this at the end, so I'll have all my information there again also. Okay, and then so here's our agenda that we're going to go through today. So we're going to go through the Power BI service and workspaces. I'm going to talk about the Power BI apps. I'm going to talk about additional apps for Business Central that are Power BI apps. I am going to walk through how you can install the Power BI apps and connect those into Business Central. And then I will also show how you can make some changes to those apps and then republish those out to the workspace. Okay. And I will kind of do this as a little kind of step-by-step of all of the things that you need to do in order to make these two work together. So one of the questions I always ask customers all the time is, why are you wanting Power BI? It's, people always come to me and say, oh, I want Power BI. And, a lot of people don't realize when they're doing, I do a lot of financials with Power BI. So with the Power BI and the financials, most people are wanting to print them out or put them into Excel. And so that's not really what Power BI is designed for. So I have got it to do those things over the years, but that's technically not really what it's designed for. It's really designed for more dashboards. Absolutely, there's tables, table matrices, or some of the different visuals that you'll have inside of Business Central or inside of Power BI. And over the years, the printing and the exporting has become much better than it used to be. So you can export that data out. It really looks more like a raw format, but you can also do some printing from those. If you are trying to print reports, if you want more static reports, if you came from the GP space, which I did, where we had SSRS reports, that is called a paginated report. So in Power BI, you can create a paginated report that can also sit on the Power BI workspace that can have parameters in that particular report, splicers, drop downs, filters, those types of things. So you can have those in the report, and it will look exactly like your GP SSRS report. So we do have a lot of people coming from that space who are used to seeing the reports in that format. And so you can use the Power BI, what's called the data set or the semantic model, for those particular types of reports also. You can also use your Power BI semantic model inside of Excel to do pivot tables. Those are some of the newest features in all of the Office products where you can connect directly to your semantic model. So it kind of joins, all of Excel, Power BI, and Business Central all of together by just essentially having no code or very low code. I can't tell you that every single report that I have, every single Power BI report will have some type of DAX coding in it in order to get what customers are needing. Now, It doesn't mean that you have to be an expert DAX coder, because there's lots of things out there, obviously Copilot and some of the other AIs that'll help you write some of that DAX code today. So there's also Power Query. So if anybody's worked with Power Query in the past inside of Excel, it looks exactly the same as you have in Power BI. So Power BI and Excel look very similar for Power Query. And there's some, lots of new features that come out in Power Query quite frequently. And then we'll also talk about some licensing on that too. So here we have our Power BI flow. So this is where essentially you're going to have your data connected over here. It can come from an Excel spreadsheet. It could come from OneDrive. It can come from a SharePoint folder. And obviously it can also connect directly to Business Central. And this will connect obviously into where you can get the data on your phone, on a tablet, or obviously on your desktop too, just depending. You can also do it on your watch if you have dashboards. So on the Power BI service, some of the functionality that you'll see out there that you would be using obviously would be desktop, phone, watch, as I said, at dashboards. So this is where you can consume that particular data that you're getting from the Power BI service. And like I said, I'll explain kind of what the Power BI service is, and we'll also kind of walk through, and I'll show you Power BI service as a demo also. And so here you'll see Power BI service has a bunch of workspaces. So you'll see on the left over here, there's different workspaces that you can create. Within those workspaces, you can give access to those workspaces, and then you can have different settings on those workspaces. And we could go down a very deep rabbit hole of all of the settings and access functionality that can be handled in those workspaces, because there's a lot of settings that can be done. Whether you allow people to download data or access the data behind the semantic model. You can do things such as row level security. That actually happens on the reports and the semantic model. So there's a lot of stuff that happens out in the Power BI service. Also, over the last few years, the Power BI service has become much better to be able to edit in the Power BI service. So you don't necessarily always have to download the desktop Power BI app, which I have lived in for many years. So I'm used to that, and there is more functionality in the desktop Power BI app where you're writing reports, but you can still make changes out there in the Power BI service. So if it's a simple change, I may make it out on Power BI service. The settings between your desktop version of what's called a PBIX, that is the version of the report. When you publish that PBIX up to the workspace, the settings that are in that particular report will also follow it to the workspace. Okay, so just so you know, when you do publish those models, it publishes the settings with it also. So, but what is made up out of the service is obviously workspaces, reports, semantic models, and then you'll also see some things that are called dashboards. And a dashboard is more of just like a KPI. So it can be a snippet of a KPI from an actual PBIX report. Okay. And if somebody will let me know if there are any questions in the chat, that would be great. So the Power BI apps, so there are obviously free apps that are out there on AppSource for Power BI. And as you can see, there's just a couple of options that we have here. Power BI connectors for Salesforce. There's Power BI connectors for, all different kinds of products that are out there. And then we also have the free apps, which everybody's had. If you've been at any conference recently, you've probably heard Kenny talk about the Power BI reports for Business Central. So there are, I believe there are 9 now Power BI reports for Business Central: finance, sales, purchasing, manufacturing, inventory, subscription billing, and so on. So there's all of those have been published out there. I believe that all of them are now editable also. And it will also depend, if you notice, the reason I took this screenshot for this purpose is you'll see there is a 26.2 and a 27 plus. Most everybody is on 27 of Business Central at this point. So if you did accidentally download the 26.2 version, it will not work on the 27 versions. And vice versa, if you were in 26, the 27 versions would not work. The 28 versions are also do work with the 27, so it says 27 plus. So as you're going out there, just be careful about which Power BI apps you're actually going to download. And so you'll see it says 27.0 and later. And I did upload my slides for everybody. Within the slides, you will see that I did actually put a link to all of the different ones that are available, and you'll see that slide in just a minute. So for these applications, obviously we have to have Business Central online. I believe that it can work with on-prem. I think I heard that recently, but I've never worked with it on-prem, so I'm only doing the online versions. And then it will come ready to integrate with Power BI. So all of those apps that you download, you can just connect them, which we're going to walk through too. You may, if you've heard any of the recent releases from the waves, you may have seen something recently that was a 5-click deployment. So this is only for sandbox environments. This is not for production. I'm not sure if they're ever going to put this into production. I've asked Kenny and he said he wasn't sure. But the 5-click deployment basically takes this entire slideshow that I have and you just throw it in the trash, because the 5-click deployment actually deploys everything and connects it to Business Central for you. So hopefully they're going to do that in the production. So if you see that, it is supposedly only for sandboxes. But it does walk through everything, and there is the YouTube for that. So in order to use the Power BI with Business Central, you will need to go obviously get the template app that is out there. You will have to have a user, it'll have to be a user who has access to Business Central data. And then you will have to have that pro license in order to access the reports, okay? So yes, you have to have a BC license, at least a Teams license, and you will need to have a Power BI license in order to do these apps. If you're on an E3 or E5 license, I believe those come with a Power BI. You'll just have to look at your licensing or ask your IT about that. I always have said the free account is kind of not really worth much of anything unless you're playing with Power BI and you're a single user. Or if you have capacity licensing, which is on the way other right side of the screen, because it's about $5,000 a month for capacity licensing. But in the Power BI world, it is now $14 per month per user. And then, of course, Power BI Premium per user is $24 per month. The difference between the Power BI Pro, the big difference, and I do have a slide for that also, is really the Power BI Premium. It does allow for more refreshes per day. It's 48 instead of 8. And the Power BI Premium also will allow you to have a premium workspace, which gives you more capacity. I know this slide is very, very small. I'm sorry about it. Like I said, you will get the slides. But as you can see, the model memory size limit down there between the Pro and the Premium are very different. And that is the only reason that we do, when we're putting Power BI with Business Central data, that we have had a couple of customers, we've actually had to upgrade them to the Premium per user license. And it is because of the model memory usage. And you'll get a memory usage error inside of Power BI if you're running up against those. You can try to optimize your Power BI report. And that may get you under that model memory usage point, but it just depends of what, kind of how many calculations you're doing. We do a lot of complex reports and calculations, and we run up on that quite a bit. And then the other thing is obviously the refresh rates per day. and the storage size. So as you can see, the storage is pretty different between those two licenses. You can have a mix of licenses. So if you had a premium workspace, which puts a diamond on the workspace, you could have people who have access to a premium workspace with the premium reports, and then you could have a pro workspace with people just accessing the pro side too. And so you definitely can have a mix of those, but if a pro person tries to open a premium report, they will say that they basically don't have the right license. Right? Any questions so far? Nope. All right, we'll go right into, so this is some of the prerequisites that you will obviously have to do in order to use Power BI with Business Central.
And Tanya, before we get started,
Yep.
I think Jim did put, he just entered something in the chat.
Okay.
He said, I started on version 26.2 of Power BI app, but our environment is now upgraded to 28.3.
Yes.
When I click update for 26.2 for Power BI app, it says it is up to date. Seems like we can still see data, but curious if you know of an upgrade path for that workspace.
The question I would have is, does it appear as though that it is connected to your 28.3? Does it look like it upgraded correctly?
Yeah. Sorry, I got off mute.
No problem. Perfect. Not an issue.
Yeah. So yeah, we were on version 26.2. So the Power BI app and workspace is still at version 26.2. Business Central is now at version 28.3.
Yep.
When I look at the workspace and I look at reports in there, it looks like it's pulling data. We're just now dabbling in what does Power BI, what kind of reports can we do? But it looks like I am getting data even though I'm on the workspace version 26.2. So when you were just saying that, there's a newer version, is there an upgrade path, or do you like blow away the workspace? That
yeah,
part I'm very novice on.
Yep, that's exactly what you would do. So you can just delete that workspace. So you can delete the workspace, it'll delete the report, the semantic model, and I delete the workspace too. And then what you'll do is just download the new version and then connect the new version to your data.
Okay.
Yep.
Sounds easy. We'll see.
Yeah, and it is actually pretty easy.
Okay.
I delete mine all the time, especially when I'm going through these presentations, because I like to walk through them again.
Okay.
And it is per company, so just making sure you guys will see that in this presentation also.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, you're very welcome. All right. So some of the prerequisites, like I said, is you do have to set up a Power BI workspace. So if you've never done this before, and like I said, I get customers, I do this probably every week. So what you will do is you will just be logged in as your user for that particular account. And then you will go into powerbi.com. It will pop up a box and say, it'll recognize that your particular user does not have a Power BI workspace. If you are a small company and nobody in the company is using Power BI, and you're just going to use it for BC, you could go ahead and set that up. It is going to set that up for your tenant. So if somebody else logs in, they would need to have, of course, access to whatever you have set up, and you can give them access to the workspace. But as you can see, it'll give you a free trial for 60 days for that license. That license is a pro license. So as you get to the end of that 60 days, it'll warn you. And in some cases, it will let you actually extend that sometimes another 60 days. It usually only extends it once, and then you would have to buy the Power BI Pro license. So like Jim was saying, we're just dabbling in it. We want to see it. If you're just wanting to dabble in it and you don't have a license, you will get a 60-day free license when you log in the first time. And if you have a BC license, it's going to also recognize that. Okay. So once you go into there, you will see it will set up something that is called My Workspace. So that is your personal workspace. And then you would create workspaces out there. When you download and install the Business Central app, it will actually create a workspace of its own, and it will have the semantic model and the report in that particular workspace. All right, so that's all we need to as a prerequisite for the Power BI workspace. And so then the next thing we would do would be going in to install the Business Central apps. And so here is a link to those reports. And so, like I said, you guys will have access to this also, but you can also go search this on the AKA-MS websites, and through Microsoft Learn, you can also get to these, and AppSource, of course. I always have a hard time finding these on AppSource. I don't know why, but it takes me longer to search for them than to go to my slide deck. But these will be all of the apps. So once you find the app and you get to the right version of the app, what you will see there is you will see a get it now. And then, it'll say what you're signed in as, and then you would just say, go over to the right and say, get it now. Okay. Once you do that, then you will see that it says that it's going to install it. And as you can see, it says installing could take a little while. It actually will probably take a couple of minutes, maybe 5 or so minutes, a little bit longer, to install that into the workspace. And then you would see that in the workspace. It's actually the one right here at the bottom on my screenshot down here. You'll see it says Finance App for Power BI, version 28. And you'll see that this is the one that says it is a template app. So once it is installed, that is what you will see there as, this is actually as an app. And I will show you and explain the difference between a workspace and an app. Okay, and so then now, well, obviously once that is installed, you'll see that it'll say that your app is now ready. Okay, that does not mean that it is connected to your data. Once you launch that report, you will see at the top, it will have a yellow bar up there, and it'll say that you're viewing this with sample data. And you'll see right up there that it will say connect to your data or connect your data. And then you'll see right there, a little bit better, so you can see connect your data. Once you click on that little link there, that will open up the Power BI app here. And within this particular app here, you will need to put in your company and your environment, okay? And this is where everybody messes it up. Your environment is your tenant name. We try to name everybody production just to make it consistent because we do share Power BI reports across customers. So if it was production-123, you need to make sure it says production-123. If you're trying to connect this to a sandbox, you would, of course, need to put the sandbox production name there. The company name will be the company name in the companies section, okay? So, for instance, if it was Blue Dragonfly, you're going to put Blue Dragonfly, okay? So you need to make sure that you know your environment and your company name. Once you put both of those things in there, you will be able to choose next. These will be the settings that will appear there. So I usually leave them the same. I usually make this organizational and OAuth 2, and then you'll say sign in and connect. It may make you sign in. Most of the time it actually doesn't make me sign in because it already knows who I am at this point. So when you say sign in, connect, it's actually going to usually launch you into that. Whoops, I got a blank one. Once you have that connected, then what you will see is it will basically, that yellow bar then will go away. And so then now you will be connected to your app inside of Power BI. Okay. And then you'll notice here too, this is where I have a semantic model and I will have a report. Okay. If I need to add additional companies, okay, unfortunately, right now, the apps are per company because in that parameter, which is what that was called previously, you had to put your company name in there. So if you need to install an additional company, you'll say, get it now. It'll recognize that it's out there. And then you'll see install another copy of the app into the new workspace. And then you can enter that name. Whoops, enter that name in there for that. Hopefully I can go back there. Yeah. I think, Jim, what you probably did was update only the workspace content without updating the app, maybe. I'm not sure. This was a relatively new thing that was started coming out with the 27 and later. I haven't updated a lot of these because previously you had to uninstall it and reinstall it. So I've always seen that work better.
Yeah, I don't remember where it was at, but
Yeah.
it said check for updates, and I clicked it and it said you're up to date. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, exactly. So it probably maybe just did the workspace or did something and didn't do it all.
Right. Okay.
Also, just for your information, because the first time you install it, it doesn't really ask you a name to be able to name the workspace. You can actually rename the workspace and the report even after it is installed. So just for your information, so I'll install it and I'll call this one, you know, company A, and then I'll go in and start to and do the other one, then it'll be company B, C, and so on. And I usually obviously put the company name with those. Okay. All right, and then in the right-hand corner, what you will see over there, that's where you can see which company that you are logged in as, and of course, date and time information. And this is where we are actually viewing this as an app, not necessarily a report. And you'll see the way that you will see the difference on that is that the apps will have the tabs that are at the bottom of the report. So it's each tab on the report will appear on the left-hand side. So it looks more like a web page as opposed to an Excel spreadsheet. That's the way I explain it. And then your filters will be over here off to the right. These are some settings that you can change on the workspaces that you can say, clear the settings every time somebody leaves it, or allow them to save their settings, or don't allow them to add filters at all. Okay, so that's some of the workspace settings you can do in there. Okay, all right, so now we're going to hop over into Business Central. So how to set this up and use it in Business Central. And I do get this question quite a bit because of the aged accounts payable backdating, which has come out in Business Central. And everybody clicks on it and it takes them to a Power BI report. If you haven't set up the Power BI app, then you won't have that report. And I believe it's in the Finance app. So these are all of the reports that you will see inside of Business Central. And like I said, there's those aged receivables backdating right there. So when customers click on these reports, it will tell them that they get an error message and it will say that they need to set up Power BI. So you do have to install the app first. You can go back in and do it later, but normally I will install the app first. And then I will come into Business Central, and you can do one of two things. You could just go into the Power BI setup inside of Business Central, or you could just click on one of these reports also. So once I click on one of those reports, what it will do is it will give me the wizard to walk through the assisted setup. Okay, so of course I'm just going to hit next on that, and it'll say next and finish. That is not the end of it. Because then you will have also, during the assisted setup, you will choose what your calendar configuration type is. Because if you are a fiscal calendar inside of Business Central, inside of Power BI, the date table will be fiscal instead of calendar. So that is actually pretty important there also. And then you'll do your start dates. I usually go back to the start date of the beginning of my data. Until it doesn't really matter, it's going to extend anyway, but I'll just put it to whatever the end of this year. And then these are just some working days. And this is, again, just helping set up the date table that is inside of Business Central. Okay. When you get to this screen, what you will see is if I choose the app here, right? So the first one says Finance, it is going to show me my workspace. And so if I'm in company A, I would need to make sure that I am linking that with company A inside of Power BI service. Okay. Same thing on each of the other Power BI apps. I would need to make sure that I'm setting up the correct app with the correct workspace out there. And then inside of here, you'll see that they have the Power BI assisted setup company environment. It's going to show what company and environment, and then that's when I would just verify that and choose finish. Okay. And then now what you will see is that this particular report will now be available inside of Business Central. Okay, so now all of those Power BI reports that you saw in that particular section, they are all finance reports. So now when a customer clicks on them, it will actually launch a report as opposed to just launching in a setup screen. Okay. If I needed to go back and make any changes because maybe I've renamed the app, I can go back into what is the Power BI connector setup, and you can see there, I can see what the environment name is and company name for this. I can see where I can change my start and end date. So I could go directly to the screen and type that in too. As you can see, the working days is up there. And I can also schedule dimension refreshes. Dimension refreshes are different than Power BI refreshes on the Power BI service, okay? So you'll see a list of all of the different apps that are available, and you can connect those on there as well. One of the other things you will want to do, especially if you're using the finance app, is, as you can see up there, is the Power BI account categories. I think this is one of the things that most people miss because you don't see it in the assisted setup. So in the Power BI account categories, what you will do is when you click on that, this will show you the categories that are on the Power BI account category. So that's what is in the category on the report inside of Power BI. On the right, these are your GL account subcategories, okay? So if you map these to what is inside of Power BI, then when you run your reports, the financial reports and the categories out there will obviously be more in line with your account subcategories inside of Business Central. If you do not map them, most of the time you'll just see basically a bunch of, it'll all be lumped together so that you don't, it's kind of just looks kind of like, okay, wait, this doesn't really look like my data. So, and you can always come in, and this is the refresh of some of that data too. So that's what that's talking about. Okay. All right. So one of the other things that came out, I think it came out about a year ago, and this is the one thing that we were finally all excited about, is that we were actually able to modify those as semantic models. So previously, for the first few years of the apps, we were not able to modify the semantic models, but you can now. And so just for everybody's knowledge, so out inside of the Power BI workspace, you do not download the report, you download the semantic model. So if you're wanting to make a change, make color changes, add logos, whatever you're wanting to do to those, make data changes, you can go in and you can download that semantic model. Now, I will say there's a lot of settings, a lot of DAX coding going on in these particular reports. So you can get lost and it can be a bit overwhelming, but you absolutely can do this. Okay. And as you can see, there's also security that is also built into this. So you can add row level security onto these reports now also. Okay. And row level security is an example of that is dimensions. And let's just say AJ can have department 200, Jim can have department 300, and Brad's in 400. What will happen is when Brad logs in, he will actually only see his department in all of the splicers. He actually will not see AJ's or Jim's data. Okay, so I use this a lot for some financial reporting for customers, just because it's a little harder to do that in BC. All right, so to make changes, you would download the semantic model. As you can see right now, my tabs are going across the bottom. So this was the Excel look that I was talking about. So now I'm actually in Power BI desktop is what I am in. As you can see, I have my data tables and queries over to the right, or my DAX coding. I will have my visualizations here, my filters, and then these are all of the different pages that we saw in the app going down the left-hand side. So with inside of here, I could make changes to anything on any of these pages. And then once I've finished making those changes, I would just publish those up to the workspace. And there is a publish button right up here at the top. Hopefully you guys, I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, but it's like 2 to the left of Copilot up there. Copilot's pretty visual up there. So that's where you can publish that to your workspace. It will ask you, it'll say, hey, there's already an app out here, a semantic model by this name. Do you want to override it? You would say yes. Okay. If you're nervous, make sure you make copies of it. But if it's a standard one and you're not going to mess up something else that you've changed, you can always re-download these apps. But what you can see here, in this example, I added the little Business Central logo over here on my PBIX. And then that's the publish button right there next to the left of Copilot up there. So I could add, like I said, logos, do anything I want, and publish that back up to the workspace. There you go. There's my publish button. Once I publish that, this is where it's asking me if I want to replace that data set. And that's where I would say, yes, I want to replace that. And then it will go through and it will tell me success that it has replaced it. Obviously, if it doesn't say I'm replacing it, I've done something like maybe I've changed the name of the report on accident or downloaded it twice and it put a 1 on it. So just be careful when you're downloading these. Once you do that, though, then you can see your particular report, so that now when you log into Business Central and you look at that particular file inside of Business Central, you will see that it's added that particular logo or any other changes that you put on there. Okay. And as you can see here on the left, now my tabs are going down the left-hand side, and that's because I'm actually looking at it in the app view. Okay. All right. And once you do make those changes and you publish that back up to the Power BI service, you will need to go to the workspace, and you'll see there's a little bitty thing up there in the right-hand corner that says update the app. Something I always forget, and customers are like, you said you made the change and I don't see it. And I will forget that I've published an app for them, which I do a lot. So you do need to make sure you update the app, because if you don't, the changes will not be in the app. It'll only be on the workspace. Okay, so very important. Okay, and you'll see that it'll tell you that it may take a little while. It honestly usually takes about 3 minutes. And when you do that, it will pop up, hey, here's these other changes you want to make. And then you would just say that you want to go ahead and update that app. Okay. All right. And it'll tell you that it's successfully published. You can copy this link and give this to other users. Obviously, you can go to the app. If you copy that link, that person will need to have access, obviously, to the Power BI workspace. But as you can see here, now I have a logo up there in the left-hand corner of my Power BI app. All right. So any questions about that? I know I have about 5 minutes. I know I went through that pretty quick because there's a lot of stuff there. And what can you guys see on my screen right now? Can you see my BC?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
BC.
Awesome. So I just wanted to quickly, while you guys can ask me questions, I have my workspace open. I have Business Central also open. But I'm happy to this is where I was talking about, obviously my workspaces are over here. I'm in that finance workspace right now. This is where you can see that semantic model. You'll notice that those little icons are not available until I hover over them. But this is where I can do that row level security. This is where I can rename those. This is where I can go in, download the file, manage permissions, because I can do permissions to just this report if I wanted. And then this is where I can go in and do some settings on the refreshes. So I can set up 8 times a day because I have a pro license, or 48. This is where you can see your data source credentials. You can see your refresh history right up here. So I could see how often this is getting refreshed and whether it's failing or not. It will disable it if there's problems due to connection issues. So you do have to watch this because it will periodically disable itself. And then you just have to come out and just make sure that you turn on the refresh and make sure you have that set up. But the difference between the workspace and the apps, if I gave a person access to the workspace and the report in the workspace, this is what it will look like in here, right? So it's not necessarily app. It's not necessarily the pretty app. But you'll see that I can do a lot of those edits with inside of here. If I said I wanted to edit that particular app, I'm going to see my visualization and data. This is what I said has gotten so much better in the last few years. But I can make some of those changes if I wanted to change colors or change it to, you know, a different pie chart or something like that. I can make those changes on this particular app, and then I would need to republish that once I've saved that. If I'm looking at the apps per se, they'll appear on the top left right there. If I go up there, and it's going to ask me, I'm not going to save that. But if I come up here, now you'll see that I have my apps, and this is where I would have all the different apps named. And this is where I can see my finance app now in here also. Okay. And if I do build custom Power BI reports, you can also connect those in Business Central. I do these all the time. So you can connect those down here in Power BI here. And this is where you can come in and just say, yep, I'm going to get started with Power BI. I can essentially, you know, go to a Power BI homepage, hit next, and it is going to launch it, and it is going to connect to my Power BI workspace that is in this particular tenant. And so now if you see this, what it will do is it's actually bringing up all of my reports that are in all of my workspaces out there in Power BI. So I could connect that with a particular report, see that report inside of here, and I can make this bigger, expand this. I'll be able to see all of my filters and everything for this particular report right here too. So I can expand those out. There are like 3 of these, so I can actually have 3 different reports right here on my main page. And the other place that I put them for customers a lot is in my customers pages or my vendor page. If I have an AR aging, you can also edit your fact box over here. And in your fact box, you can add the Power BI little box. And so that when they're in this particular view, they'll see their customer, and they can actually see their customer aging over there off to the right too. So that's some of the things that I do for customers a lot. All right, I know I am right on time, and I do want to let anybody ask questions. I don't see any other questions other than, oh, now caught up. Okay. Brad, you've seen it all.
I wanted to see all the data. I didn't want to just see my department.
Oh, yeah, no. We limit you.
Yeah,
That's
I
why
guess
there are no
I mean,
scissors when we go out.
I'm sorry, Brad. I was just going to say, you know, feel free to take yourself off of mute, ask questions to either Brad or Tanya, and or just in general. We have, you know, other MVPs and, you know, board members on the call. So if you have anything on your mind, just feel free to say it, put it in the chat.
They're all ready for lunch.
I know. A quiet group today. Except AJ. No, I'm just
I was like,
I
AJ,
picked
you're
on
not going to
AJ.
make any comments?
Well, I mean, we'll stick around. I mean, this concludes our user group meeting today. If you, we'll stick around till most everybody drops off the call, and you guys have a great day, and we'll see you next month.
All right.
Thank you so much. Also, Tanya and Brad, for your time and presenting these today.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yep.
And I agree with Lewis. 2 great topics and presentations. Yep.
AJ stepped away from his desk, or he'd be yapping. He's got one of those mouse movers right now.
Yeah.
All right, awesome.
Yeah, all right.
Well, we have our information out there, I think. So if anybody has any questions, then they can always reach out.
Yep. And like I said at the beginning of the call, we will be sending the recording out for this so you can reference it back, and the slide decks as well. So be on the lookout for that email in a few days.
All right, great.
All right. Thanks to you guys. We'll talk to
All
you
right,
later.
thank you.
Bye.
All right, bye.